And good morning, dear colleagues. It's an honor to welcome you to this SIGMA event, Building Citizen-Centric Services for a Digital Future, with the main purpose to launch the SIGMA paper on service design and delivery in the EU Eastern Partnership. It's great to see you, so many of you joining us today, and I see that the numbers are going up from moment to moment. I'm sure you will not regret for joining us today. For those of you who don't know SIGMA or don't know us well, let me do a brief introduction. SIGMA is a joint initiative of the OECD and EU. We are organizationally incorporated in the OECD and principally financed by the EU. And our mandate is to support the countries of EU enlargement and EU neighborhood in their public administration reforms. Now, EU enlargement and neighborhood basically means three regions. It's Western Balkans plus Turkey, it's the Eastern Partnership, and it's the Southern neighborhood. Now, this year, the EU Eastern Partnership has been particularly in focus for obvious reasons. As we speak, Ukraine is fighting for freedom against the Russian aggressors. And by doing that, Ukrainians are also bravely defending the most precious values of the free world, of our most precious values. At the same time, we have seen 3 EU membership applications from the Eastern Partnership and 2 candidate statuses granted very fast. So the developments in the region will certainly have a huge impact and will be vital for the future of Europe. And I think I could even say much broader. Let me at this occasion once again express support and admiration to the Ukrainian colleagues for their courage and determination in their fight. Now, I said SIGMA's mission is to support countries in their public administration reforms. How do we do that? I would start with the principles of public administration we have developed together with the European Commission. They're a framework of standards and also a framework for measuring quality and performance of national public administration systems. Right now, as we speak, we are developing a new updated version, of course, again, hands in hands with the European Commission, with DG NEAR and colleagues from some other DGs. Based on the principles, we do a lot of monitoring work, particularly in countries with EU integration aspirations and perspective. We do a lot of in-country work on specific projects with a hands-on approach, working with governments on laws, strategies, and policies. We also do regional events and regional studies, such as the one we are launching today, which is in our files recorded as the SIGMA paper number 64. The paper we are launching today focuses on the Eastern Partnership countries, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine, and on the topic of administrative service delivery. It is a result of hard work that lasted over a year to bring together a wealth of information and material. And with this online event, with the report, and with our future work, SIGMA aims to contribute to the reforms, but also to facilitate the exchange and learning in the EU Eastern Partnership. I'm sure this is only the beginning of a fruitful work in the service delivery area, which is definitely a first-class topic. Namely, the European Commission has emphasized the importance of good public service design and delivery in its priorities for the Eastern Partnership beyond 2020, including the ambition that at least 80% of public services are available online through interoperable platforms. And this ambition was reiterated in the 2021 Eastern Partnership Summit. Most governments are aware nowadays that quality services and user satisfaction are vital for the quality of life of the citizens, for competitiveness of national economies, and also for the level of trust in government. I would say that out of all areas of public administration reform SIGMA engages in, service delivery and digitalization are the 2 where political commitment is the most accounted for, and the results in SIGMA partner countries have been the most remarkable. And this is also the case in the 5 countries the study is covering, and we will be discussing today. There is strong political commitment And in consequence of that, and some other factors, of course, the pace of progress is remarkable, as you will see. Of course, there is still scope for improvement. There's much to do on integrating services around the life events, as regards the once only principle, to which all countries have nominally committed. There is still a lot of room for improvement in terms of practical implementation of compliance with this principle. Digital identity solutions in some countries, they could still be offered in a more user-friendly ways. More proactive services could be developed so that citizens and businesses wouldn't even have to waste their time on any interaction with public administration to get what they are entitled to, not even online. I always say that, you know, the best administrative services are the ones you either don't need at all, or the ones you receive without any effort, without any application, offline or online, without any interaction with the state. You will hear about all this and more during today's gathering. Please allow me just to very briefly draw your attention to another SIGMA paper that has recently emerged as a kind of spin-off of this big study we are talking about today. It is a policy brief on service delivery and digitalization in Ukraine during wartime. A very interesting insight in what level of resilience and agility the Ukrainian public administration demonstrated after the aggression broke out. Service delivery was practically fully kept up. Digitalization has been even stepped up, and many services have been streamlined and simplified. Just to give you one interesting example, Ukraine is currently, to my knowledge, the only country worldwide where a couple can get married via online connection, of course, with the presence of an official also online. Ukraine is indeed a very special case, and I invite you to read the paper, which has recently been published on the Ukraine Hub of the OECD website. But let's get back to the study at hand. I would like to thank the SIGMA team, in particular Nick for his leadership, but also Ian as our external collaborator, and Jose and Ross. Thank you to all for the great and hard work on this study. Thank you to the European Commission, Florian and his team, for the review and the support. We are very glad that that you, as our dearest partners, are with us today, knowing how busy your schedules are. Thank you to the government institutions and officials in all 5 countries for involvement, for feedback on drafts and clarifications provided. And a big thank you to our local experts. Georg from Armenia, Vali from Azerbaijan, Georgi from Georgia, Steluta from Moldova, and Andriy and Ludmila from Ukraine. Without you, we could have never collected so much valuable data and insights. Now, before diving deeper into details of the report, listening to the French experience and to the panel with the 5 countries, let me say that I'm extremely pleased to have with us the European Commission, not only DG NEAR, but also DG as a key actor in this policy area. So let me, without further ado, pass the floor to Mrs. Natalia Aristimuño Perez, the Director of Digital Services in DG. Natalia, a big thank you for being with us today, and over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your kind words, and thank you for inviting me today. It's a pleasure to be with you today, and yeah, look at your achievements, because I think you are very far. As you said, well, digitalization of public services are key, and I would like to come here with a change of mindset that we had before. The digitalization was considered more a challenge. We were seeing that, oh, I need to digitalize my services, and we were not looking at that from a positive perspective now. And the examples mentioned, I think, are very relevant for that. We see it more as an opportunity to give us all the elements to enable the changes. we are already in a digital society, so that we cannot deny that. But sometimes we forget the impact the digitalization of public administrations play, not only for the public administrations themselves, but for the digitalization of our own economies. And I think this is something that we tend to forget because we are very much focused on the public administrations, but the value we can bring by digitalizing our public administrations is economic, but also if you look at something, time is money. And when we see becoming much more efficient with our public services, this means, as Gregor was mentioning, I want services either I don't use or I'm not willing to ask. But imagine for the companies, if they are efficient, they reduce the time they spend in dealing with public administrations, this has a very important economic impact. Not only for that, as you said, also the trust with citizens, the services we are offering to citizens are very important, that we are doing them with the citizens at the center. Now, are we starting from zero? No, we are already quite far. And here I wanted just to put a bit of frame, because indeed, digitalization is a priority. It's not only a priority for the Eastern Partnership region, it's a priority for the whole Europe. And in the key priorities of the Commission, we have digitalization. So here we can see, I would like just to mention, as you did also, but the joint declaration you did, where in the cooperation framework that you are proposing, digital transformation is a key element of those, with very clear objectives. And I think this is also very important. We are not digitalizing just for the sake of using the technology. We have it. We have it with objectives. We have to better serve our citizens. And for that, we have to cover the different layers that allow us to become a digital society. We have the infrastructure with the internet. We have the public services. So the public administrations need to offer the services through interoperability. And I will come later on interoperability. But also the trust, the digital identity, the digital signatures. That's also an element that is very important and is part of the objectives, but also the skills. And this is something which is key. We have to make sure that we have the right skills spread throughout all citizens. And when I mention citizens here, I would like to go beyond, because it's not only the citizens, it's also all of us, the public administrations. We need to have the digital knowledge that we are asking also for the citizens. So this is something very important to keep in mind. And in fact, if you look at the recently adopted Commission proposal on the digital compass, you will see that we have also marked our digital decade with some targets, and the cardinal points are similar to what you are working on in the Eastern Partnership. So you have skills, you have infrastructures, you have public services, and you have the businesses, the companies that need to be also digitalized. And there we have similar objectives with 100% of key public services online, the usage of digital identity, and also very important with the former crisis we had, the COVID, we have seen the importance of the digitalization in the area of health services. So there also we have some objectives there. So I wanted to say here is that we have the political framework to move forward in this digitalization, which is very important. We have some key examples also that after having this political framework and even legislative with some targets on where to reach, we have some instruments with funding to reach them. And here I would like just to mention some examples. Just well, Gregor mentioned the ones from Ukraine, but I would like to also mention some other examples, mainly focusing on cross-border and why cross-border is so important. In fact, if you manage to have public services which are available cross-border, this means that you have also cross-domain. You can go from one domain to another. It doesn't matter which is your setup in the public administration, how many levels. You can go through the different levels because you have this architecture that you have put forward, which is very open. And in those examples, we have, for example, the usage of e-delivery. E-delivery is an instrument or a tool which allows to transport data in a secure way. And this is being used in Europe for many different areas. And here we have some examples exchanging information between Ukraine and Poland, for example, or Ukraine and Moldova. So we can see there the added value of this. We have also the e-signature pilots, which are being running between cross-border also, because this is important to have this recognition. Moldova and Armenia, Georgia, Ukraine, Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia. So you can see the importance and having these regions that we don't limit our public services, but we are open. We have also looked at assessment tools. So we have the legal and technical maturity assessment of trust. This is also very important, was already mentioned, but we have also to be able to measure which is our maturity, also our interoperability, but that I will come a bit later. There are also the country roadmaps and action plans towards the mutual recognition of the electronic ID. And this is the beginning of the public services. We need to identify our users. So having this is one of the main foundations. We have also, I cannot not mention it, the regional guidance for cross-border e-services interoperability that has been developed. Now, I have been working on interoperability for quite some time, and it's something I cannot not mention when I'm talking about digital public services. Interoperability is always seen like a very technical concept, and even people have problems in pronouncing it, but we are covering many different aspects of the digitalization of public services with interoperability. You have the technical layer, where indeed you have to make possible the exchange of information. Interoperability is indeed this capacity of organizations or systems to interact, to connect, to cooperate. So you need this technical layer, but you also need to understand which is the information you are getting from the other system. So there is where we have this semantic aspect of interoperability, where there is a lot of work being done in recognizing or understanding this information in the same way. But even if you have these two layers, that's not yet enough. You need also to have organizational interoperability. We have seen cases where you had very well-established systems in a given organization, in a given region, in a given country. But organizationally, there is no support for these exchanges. This is why we cannot forget this organizational interoperability. And the last one, which for me being having a technical background is the most difficult, which is the legal interoperability. You say, how you can talk about legal interoperability? Well, I can say it from different two angles. One is that sometimes when we create new legislation, we create new barriers to the exchange of information. So we have to be very careful when drafting our new policies to keep in mind these digital aspects and interoperability, so we do not create these barriers which do not allow us to exchange the information in a controlled and proper way. But also, what we are looking at is to facilitate. When you draft the new legislation, it is very important that you have the digital aspects in mind so that you are not duplicating, because in fact, we decided that a new law need to use a given system, and we put that in the law. That's very bad, because then if we want to change the system, we have to change the law. Just to give some examples on what we are looking at in this interoperability, legal interoperability layer. For that, if you don't know, I know that some of you already know, but for those not knowing, I invite you to look at the European Interoperability Framework. This is a reference model which gives some guidance. You have the 12 principles on how to design public services, but also we have 47 concrete recommendations on how to apply, with concrete examples on those topics. Now, in the Commission and with the member states, we thought that this was still a bit too light, because this is a voluntary basis. So you have this framework, if you want to use it, if not, you don't. And we thought that with the member states, so I want to insist that this is not a top-down approach that the Commission initiated, they say we need to reinforce the European interoperability policy. It is too important to be only voluntary. And I will reassure you, the idea is not to regulate the whole interoperability. That won't be possible, or not in one step. What we are aiming at is to establish a proper governance between all the actors, so the public administrations, but in the member states, the CIOs, the experts, to work and support this cross-border and cross-sector interoperability, with a focus on 3 main topics. One is to co-create, co-own a catalog of interoperability and reusable solutions. And we have seen with the examples before, we should not reinvent the wheel each time. It's much, much better to take something that is already there and work to improve it. We will all benefit from that, because with less investments, we will have much better services. Also, experimentation. Public administrations, we are quite risk adverse, and it's normal. We are dealing with our citizens' money, and we have to be careful on how we use that. Nevertheless, we have to be able to innovate and to change ourselves. This is why we are looking at supporting joint experimentation, so the risks are spread and we can move forward far faster, because we put together and we can say, okay, let's try with these new technologies or a new way of thinking in an area, a new way of involving the citizens in the design of the public services. So we have put in place what we call also the GovTech incubator. We want to have this possibility to have a framework where we can experiment and share the risk, but also engage differently with the private sector and the GovTech companies that are around there. And the third point that we also want to strengthen is something I already mentioned, and we are already working, but we want it to be better recognized, which is to have digital ready and interoperable by design policy. So we are not waiting for this regulation that should be adopted soon. We are in the very, very last phase of the adoption, so should be somewhere in November. But we are not waiting for that to be adopted to work, and we have some tools that can also be useful for you. We have what we call the European Interoperability Framework Toolbox, which helps you to look at these, how you can implement this framework for your own, looking at trying to better understand the framework that we have developed. We have the Join Up platform, which is a platform dedicated to all digitalization of public administration. So you have their solutions, and they are not only solutions developed by the European Commission. You have solutions also developed by any member state that wants to put it there. Even beyond, because we had also some interactions, for example, with Uruguay or Japan, so goes quite broad there, and is very interesting. We are also looking at all what's going on open source, so that we can also, this is something that we are willing to promote, and you can also find standards, specifications, frameworks that can help in some of the areas of the public administration services. And the last point is also we have the Interoperable Europe Academy, where the idea is also to have a set of e-learning courses focusing on interoperability, but with quite broad understanding of interoperability, where we can start from the basics, leading to a more technical and expert level. Those trainings are available for everybody. So I conclude, because I know you want to talk on your own topics, but I think I wanted just to raise how important is cooperation. So I'm very happy to be here, because I can see this really in these kind of initiatives, because if we want to reach our targets for the digital transformation, we can only do it together, sharing best practices, learning from peers. And there I would like to mention that we learn from successes, but we also learn with failure. So it is also very important to have an environment where we can also share what we have learned in trying out something that didn't work. And also the connection with international partners and reusing the existing solutions, because I think we can always improve what exists. Thank you very much, and have a very fruitful discussion later.
Thank you so much indeed, Natalia. And just to reassure you, I mean, the topics you are presenting are also our topics. So these are the things that we are exactly discussing, presenting today, and also afterwards. Thank you so much, therefore, for setting the scene so nicely, I would say, referring to challenges, opportunities as well for digital, mentioning the key importance of interoperability, semantic, yes, organizational, but also the legal one. As you pointed out, we will come back to these elements later on as well in the presentations, but also, I guess, into the discussions. And finally, if you allow me, I think also the address to the change of mindset, this citizen or user-centric approach when designing, delivering, co-designing even, as you mentioned, service delivery, this is quite key, and also one of the elements that we will have highlighted and will highlight. So thank you once more for being present and addressing so nicely, I think, this topic from the beginning. As you will see, this resonates all very well with the study that we are extremely pleased to launch officially today. All of you received the link already, if all went well, but officially we launched the study today. So allow me to share my screen and to make it a bit bigger. Well, if all goes well, you should receive this, you should see this. So extremely pleased to launch this study today, as said. Gregor mentioned already that as SIGMA, we have been working over the last year, even more than the last year, quite hard with ourselves, but a team of dedicated experts in close collaboration with the countries in bringing this all together, in bringing this comparative report together. Although the report is comparative in nature, it has by no means the intention to rank, or certainly not to assess the countries in a very hard way. On the contrary, the report wants to, first of all, document and describe the current state of play on service design and delivery in the countries and the region, the East region overall. Furthermore, it wants, of course, to draw some analysis and reflections from these descriptions, and all with the firm intention to inform policymakers in the countries on the EU level and even more globally, in order to, well, for key stakeholders to learn and eventually, of course, also to improve the existing practice. And therefore, this learning should not only be internal, meaning inside the countries or country, but also, as Natalia has referred to, really the reports and the work that SIGMA does in general also aims in being instrumental in facilitating the exchange of practices between countries in the region. And this webinar, this is what we consider a first launch, but also a first part of the exchange, but we will come back later to this. As I thought, participants should have received the link and have access to the study. We will also put it in the chat later on for the ones who haven't. So for the ones who already went through or glanced through, you find this kind of flow throughout the report, where in the first part, we dive into strategic policy and legislative frameworks in the different countries, regulating or defining the direction, definitely, of administrative service design and delivery. So this analysis is done per country, is done also for the region. Secondly, we also try to do drawing the institutional landscape, like who is doing what and what are the key actors. And we also provide some mapping. The third part deals with what we call infrastructures and enablers. This is the technical elements that Natalia mentioned, but quite key and core kind of elements. So front office, back office, linking front and back, aspects of interoperability. These are all aspects that come across in this big third chapter overall. And finally, we have a chapter in what we call managing and designing. And this is this change of mindsets that also Natalia referred to, like ranging from understanding user needs, simplifying procedures, but also measuring satisfaction. And how do we do this? We will come back also in this short presentation into some of the aspects, not all, of course, but some of the aspects. Now, in doing so, you will find different kind of things in the report. We have documented like key milestones in the different countries, ranging from 20 years ago to now. We also display some key figures and facts related to all the countries. But in terms of the learning and of the exchange, we also included illustrations of what we call flagship initiatives. From all the countries in the region, we have documented short and precise and condensed flagship initiatives, really what we consider as, well, state-of-the-art initiatives, work that the different countries have been doing. And not only have we been documenting the flagships from the region, from the 5 countries in the region, but we've also complemented this with what we call inspiring practices. Inspiring, they are not necessarily the best world-class necessarily, some of them are, but they are inspiration, what we think are inspirational from EU countries, from European countries, also for the region. All of this to trigger the exchange and the learning. Now, what we clearly notice, and this already has been said and mentioned by Gregor, what we clearly notice is that it should be clear that service delivery as a topic is a key policy area in the administrative reforms throughout the region. And this is highly present in government programs, reform strategies, and action plans. As you can see here, these are just a list of the most recent kind of government programs, strategies, action plans in the region. Moreover, the overall leadership of service design and delivery policy can really be traced back to the center of governments in all of the countries, whether it's the president itself in Azerbaijan or deputy prime ministers in Armenia, Moldova, Ukraine. I think this is definitely a signal that it underlines the importance of the overall topic in the countries and in the region. Now, besides being service delivery being part of a strategic policy direction, as we just said, well, the right to good administration can also be enshrined in legislation. codes or laws of administrative procedure regulating how administrations and their officials need to behave and set out mechanisms by which citizens can exercise rights, of course. Well, it's interesting to note in this regard that 4 out of the 5 countries have defined administrative services in such a dedicated law and have this primary legislation in place. Moreover, in defining the scope, all countries have defined and published lists or catalogs of administrative services. Now, as you can see, the numbers included, they still vary, and 3 countries have these lists consolidated in one place, so not yet all, and this is definitely an area of improvement. Now, Ukraine is a very interesting example in this regard, because only in this case, the consolidated list covers all administrative services and also all levels. And so talking cross-border within the country, multi-level, as Natalia mentioned before, this is quite an interesting example, an interesting model. So this is an extract from the online register on the DIA portal, really allowing users to access for all over the more than 2,000 administrative services described and documented, this really detailed, well, what we can call a passport, this detailed information. And in this way, of course, providing access to all these services in the way that is very transparent, but also very accessible, and also for the improvement will be shown very interesting. Quite sure that in the panel later on, colleagues can document further on this important aspect. Now, allow us in the next part to briefly dive into some aspects of improving design and delivery of services. And in doing so, we want to highlight some important key elements. First of all, as also Natalia mentioned, this importance of getting insight and understanding of expectations of citizens and their needs. That's a start. Do we understand what people, what they need, what they want, and how they want it in terms of service delivery? And it's only in this way that we can truly design, redesign, simplify, improve processes, procedures from a citizen, user-centric manner and perspective. So key in this user-centric approach is also the easy, simple, affordable, user-friendly access to services, being them physical, being them online, whatever kind of device it may be. As Natalia said, well, in this drive of user-centricity, digital is key, and going digital is key, and the level of digitalization has become, well, and indispensable, but also invaluable. These are the opportunities that Natalia has laid out. But also digital as an enabler, as a true enabler, but not as a means in itself, and as an end in itself. Therefore, digital also isn't first in this scheme. No, it's first rethinking how we're doing things, what we're doing, and then thinking about how can digital be an important enabler, help, support in all of this. So think first, rethink first, streamline and simplify, and not just digitize the existing and digitize bureaucracy. And finally, of course, the attention also to feedback mechanisms on service quality and satisfaction. Feedback feeding in, back in to managing and improving service delivery. Now, all of these elements, they can include ways of doing, approaches, tools, instruments, and of course it would lead us way too far during this short time frame and this opportunity in launching the study to mention and go in detail in all of them. But in the report we do cover all of them and also illustrate all of them by concrete examples from the countries and some EU. What I will do now is just to highlight in the next part some of these elements. Starting with the user needs and expectations. Now, this table summarizes briefly, as a screenshot, I would say, the situation in the 5 countries. And as you can see, well, the emphasis is placed on mechanisms for receiving user feedback. Good. Tracking satisfaction. Good. So definitely, these are the 2 last lines. This is definitely something that we would encourage, and this is a very strong point from the beginning. But as we can also see, this whole co-design, as Natalia also mentioned, there might be still some work to be done here. And so extending the focus also into the design, the co-design stage in designing, thinking, rethinking services and service delivery, this is still a crucial way forward. There are already many good examples, inspiring examples. I will not mention all of them here. So seeking this feedback on satisfaction is there. The reports cover this. It provides some good examples. I'd just like to pick on one, if you allow me, and this is the Moldovan experience. And Moldova developed a comprehensive approach involving beneficiaries to feed in the process reengineering and the redesign and the whole methodology. And in order to determine perception, measure perception of service quality, but also identify problems, bottlenecks, and in this way also using various tools like surveys, focus groups, etc. And so this is quite a nice example that we documented that we also want to highlight here. Well, why is this interesting? Why is this, or can this be interesting? Well, really to use these insights from users in designing, redesigning, and improving the services. Now, how can this be done? Well, in this, the live event approach, as Gregor mentioned, but also Natalia mentioned, this could be very interesting. Well, so live events, common, crucial moments or stages in the lives of end people, citizens, users, but also the lifespan of a business. Well, this is interesting. Why is this interesting to approach the improvement of services from this live event perspective? Well, because it usually involves more than one public administration that is behind. So it's not the user who needs to run from left, right, finding his own or her own way throughout the administration. No, by approaching from the start services from a live event perspective, well, it's actually the public administration that needs to collaborate, coordinate, align, streamline processes, and to deliver a seamless, even proactive service, as was mentioned before. Well, we referred already to the Moldovan reengineering methodology, and moreover, Moldova is also, well, an exception in this case, as being the only country that is truly making use of this live event approach, including 13 live events, structuring its service, public service portal. So this is definitely, I think, something really nice to look at in the other countries. For all of the participants, what we have been doing in the study as well is to document other live events, having a baby, buying a used car, moving home. So we have documented these live events throughout the study, mapping some of key aspects, key processes, and comparing also the countries from a learning perspective. Number of when we register the birth of a child, how many institutions are involved, how many documents are needed, what's the time that it takes, the degree of automation, the fees, is it costly or does it cost, and also other elements involved. So when you will have the time to go through the whole study, you might find this is also a very interesting part to look at. Now, for the next part, let's dive into the and a more close eye on the accessibility. As said, this is, as no surprise, a common trend in the region, running through all 5 countries. Now, I would say in line with common international practice, each of the 5 countries has also initiated, first of all, physical one-stop shops. Enable users to access multiple services across organizational boundaries. Georgia, Azerbaijan, they started way back over a decade ago. Public Service Hall and Asan service centers are well-known examples in this time. But also other countries that have really picked up on the national level and also on municipal levels. Now, behind the common general trend in the region, well, there's still a difference in the number of one-stop shops. Of course, the size and sizes of countries, they matter big time in this case, but also the number of services offered. So there is still quite a difference throughout the region. So this might also be an interesting aspect to look at. Besides besides the physical network, well, typically physical networks are also complemented by online channels, which offer clearly the advantage, allowing public administration to reach users anytime, anywhere. But of course, well, subject to internet access and the digital skills of service users. So digital gaps, digital literacy, which is still to an extent an issue in the region, are a clear consideration behind. Now, all countries have established a national web portal offering access to multiple electronic administrative services. Now, important to mention is that some of these, they are considered as, well, umbrellas, chapeaus, umbrellas, like overarching, and thus redirecting to other users, to other ministries or agencies, and while others truly function as one windows, designed in quite an advanced way already around live events, as we mentioned before, or really serving as this one window. Now, since talking online and e-services, it's high time to talk also a bit about digitalization. As also Natalia has mentioned, it's a great opportunity to provide services faster and better at users' convenience. Now, however, I would say to unlock truly this potential and to create seamless solutions, well, each country also must have the digital architecture in place to really do so. So let's focus on some key aspects to conclude on some of these building blocks. Now, first of all, this aspect of interoperability, and Natalia has mentioned this is technical, but so important. So firstly, front office can only offer these seamless services if it's like fully synchronized with the back office. Accessing base registries to deliver e-services, it fully relies entirely on interoperability. Now, the good news is that according to the recent e-governance reports of the EU for Digital Initiative, base registries in Armenia, Georgia, Ukraine have been fully digitalized data. Azerbaijan and Moldova mostly already, so mostly digitalized already. This is really an excellent start because without it would be impossible. Moreover, as you can see here, all countries have the legal basis for interoperability and also have the interoperability platforms in place that at least allow for semantic compatible data flows across the administration. So this is, well, an excellent basis, an excellent start to continue from. Why? Because this combination of digital-based registries and interoperability really offers the possibility of applying the once-only principle. And once-only really meaning that citizens and businesses, not only citizens and businesses, are not required to provide information to public administration more than once. No, when it's done one time, public administration should really disseminate, align within the public administration to make sure that it's not requested again and time again. So in terms of administrative burden reduction, this is really crucial. This, of course, requires for governments to make really a significant commitment. A commitment starting by the legal basis. And so this needs to be included in the law. And again, the good news here is that the legal basis in all the 5 countries is there. So once only as a principle, as a legal principle, it is there. So that's definitely the good news. However, well, to turn these citizens' rights really into operational reality, this is, of course, the challenge. And this is demanding, we realize, we understand, but this is still what needs to be done. And here it seems, as per the table also shows, that there is still some further room for improvement. Now, just note, and please note, then when we are looking at this, also at EU countries, we would come to the same conclusion. So also at EU countries, this is really a challenging thing still. Finally, as also mentioned by Natalia, to achieve the goal of personalized, user-friendly, end-to-end services, public administration needs to put in place some other core key enablers, including electronic IDs, electronic trust services, to really bring the level of service delivery to the next level. Now, also here, as the table shows, all 5 countries have adopted the legal basis for e-signatures as the way to access e-services and also validate e-documents. Georgia and Ukraine even have taken the next step and also have legislated other forms of e-authentication of service. So this is, again, on top of the interoperability frameworks and also the legislative package. Also here, when it comes to e-signature, e-authentication, also quite some key enablers are in place. To conclude, and then I end this brief overview, allow us just to draw some, I would say, general conclusions and formulate some ideas for the way forward. Well, first of all, we would like to continue to encourage countries to construct this complete policy framework. Complete meaning a package of an up-to-date strategy, as said, which most countries already have in place. B, also this umbrella law covering administrative services, really cementing the right to good administration and behavior within a legal basis. There, it's in place in many of the countries, but not all. And finally, also put work on creating this comprehensive service catalog with easy access and use. This is really completing the whole package. Second, we think that by introducing or extending the live event approach, countries can really take a step forward in making the service design and delivery more collaborative, breaking through the silos or having the silos working together, really with the idea of putting the users first and really putting the citizens, users at the center. The work that has been done on the one-stop shops, the physical ones, is really good and great to see. So extension and completion of the network of physical one-stop shops is definitely encouraged for the reasons of really making reasonable proximity to, well, settlements, providing options for remote areas, even by offering mobile options, mobile one-stop shops, for example, making them work at the end of the day. Well, while increasing, of course, the physical access to services, governments need to continue also to enhance the digital access. Now, in doing so, the level of e-services is quite important. The maturity, to put it better probably, is quite important. It's not only putting documents online, it's a good step that citizens can download documents, but organizations and countries should really move to raise the level of maturity in moving also to really transactional services, really making the service delivery really transactional and making it possible also online. The once only point, I think we just mentioned it. It's good that it's there in the law, but really we should push forward to also make it happen in reality. It's a challenge. The frameworks are there, interoperability frameworks are there, key building blocks are there, but it's really now making also the silos work together and making this really operational for the better purpose of the users, citizens and business in the country. And then finally, to spread this citizen-centric mindset throughout the public administrations, putting really the focus on putting the citizens first in designing, redesigning, rethinking, improving services. So it has been mentioned also by Gregor before, it has been mentioned by Natalia as well. This is really something where countries can still make some important step forward. SIGMA stands fully ready in working with all of you, working with all of the countries to make this happen, in improving service design and delivery by means of this kind of work, but also triggering the learning from each other, from the 5 countries, and also by bringing in EU inspiring practices, by learning also from the EU side, learning from what has been done and what can be learned. And I think this is quite a nice opportunity to also leading into our next speaker. Our next speaker being Anne-Sophie Milgram from the French Ministry of Transformation and the Fonction Publique, so the public administration. Anne-Sophie is running as the director a project on what is called the écoute usager et simplification parcours. So it's really the listening to the citizens, putting the citizens first and simplify. So Anne-Sophie, we can see you on screen. La parole est à vous. Vous pouvez partager votre écran si vous voulez. À vous. Merci.
Bonjour à tous, est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Très bien, super. Ok, parfait. Je vais effectivement partager mon écran.
So I'm indeed going to share my screen with you, and thank you so
Je
much.
ne peux pas partager mon écran.
I have an issue with sharing my screen. It seems I can't do it myself.
Alors, est-ce que oui, ça va marcher maintenant? Merci beaucoup.
Je vous en prie.
Vous me dites si c'est bon pour vous?
Oui, ça marche. Si vous
Ça
pouvez
marche? Eh ben,
si vous pouvez le mettre en...
Yes, if you could actually put it on a full screen. Is it okay this way?
Ça marche.
Non, toujours pas.
Not really. It's okay. You have to,
Non, si vous allez en bas,
you
et
go
à côté,
down to
vous
the
avez un
right.
petit
You
icône avec
could
un diaporama.
have a small icon with
Et là, vous l'avez en
a
bas.
slideshow. You click on it.
Oui.
Alors, revenez peut-être sur Zoom.
Therefore, go back to
Appuyez sur
Zoom.
partager l'écran.
Share screen option.
Essayez peut-être de rechoisir
Try
la
to,
fenêtre où il y a le diaporama.
yes, the window where you have the slideshow.
Alors, ça donne quoi?
Là, si vous le lancez en grand écran.
Now you push the slideshow. Anyway,
J'y suis là.
Non, toujours pas.
Ah, je suis désolée.
Mais ça va, Anne-Sophie.
anyway, you can go on. We can,
Vous pouvez continuer.
you can go on. It would be good. Don't worry. Anyway, thank you for having me. As Nick said, I'm Sophie Melgram. I work in the Interministerial Directorate of Public Transformation. And I am especially in charge of the experience of users, listening to users in different forms. And indeed, I am in charge of the simplification of the processes that the different users would be using with the administration at a daily basis. And we have identified for our users, we have identified 25 live events. And our objective is to simplify by setting priorities on the basis of the French people expectations. Maybe a first element about who are we and what are we doing within the framework of the experience of users in our directorate. The idea is in coherence with what was already shared, to take into account the expectations of the users and of the public service who are interacting with different service agents. And the idea is to be able to mingle between the expectations of the users and the administrative agents and the elected people within the framework of proximity in order to include everybody in the process that we are undertaking. The idea is that we could cover the expectations of the population, this population which is interacting between each other, and to have priority actions and actions to be assessed and to evaluate the quality of the public service. For this purpose, we have the task of mobilizing under the state service through what we call the public service plus that I am going to present. And this is a program that is which is based on a digital platform. This is the Public Service Plus platform, which gives the possibility to the users to refer to it and to know how to file an opinion once they interact with the public services. I will come back to this later. And taking into account the expectations of the users, agents, and the elected people, to be able to collect these expectations and to make the users as key actors in the continuous improvement of public services, and to collect their opinion and to mobilize these users along the process that relates to simplifying the different steps when dealing with the administrations, because the different users can identify some operational possibilities when interacting with agents. The idea is to identify some good practices that could be also detected in public services. This is why we have created a community that would be sharing between public services and the territorial collectivities which are proximate to the different users organizations in national territories. The idea is to capitalize and to make all the mobilized actors benefit from this experience and to be able to animate this community of public services networks. I hope that my screen could move to the next page. This program, Public Service Plus of Public Administrations, is concentrated on the experiences of the users. And for us, the screen is still in the first page. I think now it's okay. Here we go. I cannot move from my side. The idea is to have public services that would be more proximate, nearby, simple, and effective, and that could benefit from the user's experiences. When we say that, what is the scope of this program, and what does it cover? In the public services, we have about 10 ministries and some 40 public service networks. These are, of course, as we said, ministries and public services, as each one does have them in their own state, such as tax services, employment offices, social security organizations, and accompaniment and recruitment with the enterprises. Whatever is related to the gendarmerie, police, national education, and universities, Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Interior, and this includes 2.5 million agents and nearly 47 million French people, because we are targeting the users. And this means that we include all the population, youth, children, and all the users of the public service, those who use these public services but do not give their opinion in this regard. As we said, this is an interaction between the public services and the users. With regards to local authorities, we have department councils and regional councils, municipalities. In municipalities, we have a voluntary basis in order to integrate this program. Today, the Public Service Plus is a politically supported program. We have the minister, Stanislas Guerini, and this is a program that is followed at a quarterly basis in order to see what are the progresses and what are the difficulties, and at what level the Minister of Transformation and Public Service and the Prime Minister and the Public Administration Minister could help improve this public policy within the Public Service Plus. With regards to steering system, when we say priority program, we are talking about steering system, which is embodied by several bodies at the highest level. These are a strategic steering committee, which is chaired by the Minister of Transformation of Public Service, which includes all the directors of the national administrations, the employment and social security operators, and different departments. At an operational level, we have a steering committee, which is led by the Interministerial Administration of Public Administration. This is the ITP, which includes the users and this program inside this network that works for the improvement of these services in order to benefit users. This program is based on 4 pillars. And first is the promise, then the proof, listening from users, and another final pillar, which is around all this program. And this is the continuous improvement of public services for the benefit of users. What is this promise? This promise is materialized through 9 commitments. These are commitments that should cater to all the users who are in interaction with the public services. And these are commitments that are revolved around proximity, efficiency, and simplicity, as I have mentioned before. And this is whatever the contact channel. We talked about you talked about interoperability. We are talking about the sort of channeling, and this is not easy. That is, this is something that is including all the programs in which we are committed around this 9 commitments of proximity, efficiency, and simplicity, and to put in place these improvement actions in order to be more efficacious in the way we deliver these commitments, in the way we cater to the expectations of the users around these commitments. These are revolved around accessibility and joinability and orientation of the competent people in order to cater to the requests and applications of the users and to react to the applications within a reasonable deadline. We need to take into account the application on the basis of the contact channel that the user has chosen, either by moving directly to the administration or calling the administration or using the internet, if this is a service to be used in order to carry out these different administrative tasks. And also we should accompany the user in order to give a tailored answer. And we are in contact with different agents who are reacting to the application on the basis of the request and application of the user, because the agents and agencies are not well equipped in order to cater to the needs, and therefore we have a second level expertise on the basis of the different complex character of the files and applications to be treated. We have also commitments which revolve around transparency and respect and due diligence when dealing with the users. With regards to this due diligence, we do that within the framework of identifying the request of the users. And for this purpose, we have put what we call the right to make an error. When the user is in good faith, the user has the right to make a mistake, and with relation to the information that the user transmits to the administration, as long as this is not intentional. The idea of transparency revolving around the results and the service quality, and also transparency with relation to the opinions of the users in order to improve and simplify the different steps. We had also another commitment within the framework of this program, which is more pertinent today, and this is what we would call the eco-responsibility or environmental responsibility. We have accessibility and different steps, but we have